Welcome to another edition, or Sunday morning, or the Sunday morning edition of Power and Strategy TV. I am your gracious host, Mr. Tony Maceo, trick scholar and philosopher, one half of the dynamic duo of Max City Limits podcast. It is a cold uh, Midwest Sunday morning, and I thought I'd get up here just for a little bit, just for a little while to go over something that I've been thinking about for the past 6 months. I wrote an article on the Negro Manosphere last year where I was speaking about uh, the 7 different ways that black men can make money in the marijuana industry. As it presently stands right now, marijuana legalization is basically sweeping the country. So you have very few states where it's still totally illegal. Some of the states that where marijuana is totally legalized and decriminalized is Washington, Oregon, California, Nevada, Colorado, Michigan, Vermont, Maine, and Massachusetts. Here in the Midwest, where I am, there's a mixed degree of legislation. In other words, it's legal for medicinal purposes, and the state laws have decriminalized it. In other words, you don't get massive time or felony time for possession of marijuana anymore. So, in the article that I wrote for the Negro Manosphere, I basically went over the fact that the marijuana industry is the fastest growing business sector in the country at present. In the last 2 years, the marijuana, they don't call it marijuana anymore, of course. Now the white folks have gotten a hold to it. They call it cannabis. And that's another thing. There's been a complete reworking of the image of marijuana, right on down to the name, the vocabulary terms that they use. And of course, now they're promoting the health benefits of cannabis. So the legislation has taken a turn to where what they're trying to do is to rebrand it from this kind of drug where it's used by people like Snoop Dogg and Cheech and Chong, and now that they're whitening it up, the corporations, the billion-dollar corporations and the big pharmaceutical companies are getting ready to make a killing off of monopolizing and centralizing huge sectors of the market in the cannabis industry. So basically, the projection here is that it is estimated to be a $6 billion industry, reaching $10 billion in the next 3 years. I'm going to say it again. It is estimated to be a $6 billion industry right now, and it is projected to become a $10 billion industry in the next 3 years. So now the question is how do you get into this? How do niggas get into the cannabis industry? Now, I'm going to tell you flat out, they've made it very difficult for niggas to get into the cannabis industry. I mean, they have made it extremely difficult for you to get into the cannabis industry. First of all, for those states where cannabis or marijuana is legal, you have to apply through your state, your Secretary of State, or whatever your state administration is, your administrative board is, in order to get a license to either grow it or become a dispensary. Now, those are two different occupations. What are those? Growing is where it is what it sounds like. They call it cultivation, but it's literally growing the weed for distribution to the dispensaries. The areas have to be zoned for that. They have to be approved by your local city council, your local governing board, and it can only be grown, of course, in specific areas, predominantly rural areas, well, strictly rural areas. The next one is as a dispensary. A dispensary is a place where they sell to hospitals or they sell to people that have medical cards to actually use it for medicinal purposes. Now, what are these purposes? They could be HIV qualifies on the list, cancer, diabetes, muscular dystrophy. The list goes on and on for the particular diseases that qualify for cannabis use or marijuana use at treating those diseases. So, what is the process involved in getting an application just to be able to grow or to sell it as a dispensary? Well, the application in the state of Ohio, and I suspect across the country, the application fee just to apply for the license to grow or sell is $20,000. Now, that $20,000 fee doesn't guarantee your approval. It does not guarantee that you will be able to get the license. That's just to apply. Okay, shout out. I got a few people in the chat room. Shout out to Reese. What's good, Reese? Illinois. Yes, Reese, you're right. Illinois, it is legal. It is fully legal in Illinois starting next year. The state legislature has already approved it. So, yep, you're right there. Shout out to Janelle Santos. Shout out to my man Isa Ali in the building. Shout out to y'all. Good morning. But anyway, the industry, just to fill out the application, just to apply, is a $20,000 fee. In addition to the $20,000 fee, are bond requirements. You have to obtain a bond in order to be able to sell it. The bond has to be in the amount of $100,000. That's here in the state of Ohio. It's $100,000. Your state bond requirements could be different, but here in the state of Ohio, where I am, the bonding fee or the bond should be $100,000 or is $100,000. Now, keep in mind, bonding, if you're talking about bonding requires a specific degree of credit. It requires you to have a credit score of at least 650. And I'm not trying to be cruel, but that's going to knock or lock most niggas out the market anyway, because we got a bit of a problem with credit. So the bonding requirement of $100,000 is what you're going to need, or the bond is what you're going to need with the application. The application for cultivating, growing, or selling marijuana as a dispensary is about 50 pages long. It's about 50 pages long for you to fill it out. In addition to that, they're requiring you to get a business plan. You have to submit to them a business plan, and you have to submit to them an insurance policy in the amount of $5 million. Well, why $5 million? $5 million is that's going to be the amount that they're going to require you to carry to qualify as a grower, or is going to be the amount that they qualify you to have to be a dispensary. So because they're requiring you to have massive inventory, you're going to have a massive overhead. So they're also requiring the building, whatever building you're going to sell the marijuana from, that building has to pass code. It has to pass inspection. They have to see sprinkler systems. They have to see security systems. So we're not talking about anything cheap here. So the huge outlay for selling cannabis as a dispensary, cannabis dispensary, we're talking about at least $750,000 operation. That's just to open up. So one of the ways that I advocate, or one of the ways that I'm saying that you can get around this, is to form cooperatives. Because cooperatives, now what is a cooperative? What does that mean? What is a cooperative? A cooperative is a group of people coming together to form a business that have complete ownership in the stake of that business. I'm not just talking about stock options. I'm talking about they have complete ownership in that business. Now, cooperatives, banks will readily extend the type of credit that you need to cooperatives before they give it to a single person. Okay, so that means churches could qualify. Churches could very well qualify for that kind of loan. Banks will give loans to churches before they give loans to anyone else in the Black community. So our institutions will qualify for this. Nonprofits will qualify for these loans, and nonprofits will have an easier time getting these licenses to apply or to distribute cannabis more so than an individual will. All right, we have Mobile, Alabama. That's my hometown in the house. Jason, shout out to Jason Mabry. I graduated from Mattie T. Blunt High in Mobile, Alabama. So it's good to have the hometown in here. Shout out to Doug Yusuf Latif. And of course, I said Janelle Santos. And of course, we have the lovely Mrs. Nicole Michelle in here this morning. Glad you can join us. Yes, Miss Santos, a group of investors going together, going in, but that requires us to work together. And we all know that sometimes niggas have a problem working together. But yes, a group of investors. So, what are the alternate professions for those people that don't have the huge outlay of capital necessary to enter into the cannabis industry? What are the ways, what are the different professions that you can still make money out of this industry? And keep in mind, it's one other thing I forgot, which is most important, is that they do background checks. So if you have a past criminal conviction, if you have a past felony conviction for drugs, you will not be able to enter or to get into or participate in the cannabis industry. Okay. So if you have a screwed up criminal record, you're automatically disqualified. So that means most of the niggas that are sitting in the penitentiary for drug offenses, the same shit they sold on the streets, they cannot sell it today. I guess the pharmaceutical companies don't want the competition. Well, anyway, what I did this morning was I compiled, or what I did for the Negro Manosphere, and what I'm going to go over this morning are the 7 highest paying jobs in the marijuana or the cannabis industry. Now, keep in mind, now these jobs don't pay minimum wage. These are not minimum wage paying jobs. These jobs pay a living wage. Well, what's the difference between a minimum wage and a living wage? Very simply, a minimum wage is the wage that you are guaranteed by federal law that you should be making to work at a job. Now, you don't have to be a rocket scientist to figure out that minimum wage ain't really enough to cover your damn bills. Okay. You guys, everybody in here knows that minimum wage is exactly what that shit sounds like. Minimum wage. Minimum wage in a maximum society where the cost of living, minimum wage in a maximum society where the cost of living is high as hell, where you can't cover your bills, you have very little left over to save and invest, where you are just barely making ends meet. That is minimum wage. Minimum wage means maximum poverty in a lot of instances, depending on where you live. So the average wage, the average hourly wage, I mean, starting coming in the door for occupations in the marijuana industry is $15 an hour. That's entry level positions. That's entry level positions coming, starting in the door is $15 an hour. Doug says living wage is $25 an hour. That could very well be so. That because that's enough money for you to cover your bills and for you to be able to do what you got to do and move comfortably. So that might be correct, Doug. But the entry wage or the wage for entry level workers in the marijuana industry, it starts off at $15 and it goes up from there. So if your record is clean and you want to make some money in the marijuana industry, I'm going to go over the 7 different ways to make money in the marijuana industry. Okay. So we're going to count down backwards from 7 all the way to number 1. And I'm going to tell you the average amount that these people make in this particular industry. So the first one is as a marijuana edible chef. That's the people that use marijuana to prepare different cuisines. Okay. But there are different kinds of edibles that you can use marijuana for, such as gummy bears, lollipops. You can actually use it in macaroni and cheese. I was shocked about that. Peanut butter cookies and others. Okay. But the average salary for a marijuana edible chef is anywhere from $50 to $100,000 per year. That's the range. That's the range according to an article that I was able to get out of Forbes magazine. Forbes magazine is the source for a lot of the information that I'm going to present here today. So I didn't go to High Times. I didn't go to a marijuana friendly magazine. This is out of Forbes. These numbers and these occupations come straight out of Forbes magazine. So the average wage for a marijuana edible chef, I don't know if I said chief or chef, but chef, marijuana edible chef is the range of 50 to $100,000 a year. Okay. So what is the next level? What is the next profession? Number six is as a marijuana sales representative, aka the weed middleman. Okay. These are the guys that broker the deals between the people that grow the weed and the actual dispensaries that sell the weed. So in other words, you would go to the growers and negotiate a price by which a dispensary would purchase mass quantities from the grower for sale in the dispensaries. He's the middleman. They broker the deal for the growers so that the growers can be able to, have enough for production as well as make a healthy profit. The salary for the weed middleman is $60,000 plus commission. I'm going to say that again. $60,000. That's a guaranteed wage plus commission off of the gross sales. That instantly puts you in the middle class. That instantly puts you in the middle class. $60,000 guaranteed. That's $60,000 large plus your commission. And if you get in on the ground floor when the dispensaries open, the commission is going to be larger or is going to be more than the actual salary. Commissions are always more than the actual salary. The reason is because you're making money off of the gross instead of having a set amount based upon their profit after taxes. That's more than a decent job, Reese. That's a hell of a living. You could live very well in some places across the country off $60,000. Maybe not so much in New York City, maybe not so much in Boston or New Jersey, but you can have a pretty good living off $60,000 a year in places like North Carolina, in places like Birmingham, Alabama, in places like Augusta, Georgia, in places like Madison, Wisconsin, someplace in Dayton, Ohio, $60,000 is a pretty good salary, and it would give you a pretty decent cost of, a pretty decent quality of life, rather. So that's nothing to sneeze at. So let's move along to number five. Number five. Number five is the dispensary store manager. The dispensary store manager. This is the guy that runs the day-to-day operations of the store. He also makes sure that the store is compliant with cannabis laws so that that keeps the owners and the customers out of trouble. These guys are absolutely necessary. The dispensary store manager is an indispensable tool for the dispensary because it helps them to stay in business. The average salary is reported to be $75,000 a year for a dispensary store manager. 75K a year. That's the average salary. Who couldn't get over with $75,000 a year? Who couldn't get over with $75,000 a year? Doug says VA needs to hurry up and get on the bandwagon to legalize marijuana. Your state, let me look at your state for a second, Doug. I think your state is actually, hold on here. Uh, Virginia. Virginia is actually mixed. They allow in Virginia, it's not decriminalized, Doug, but CBD oil, medicinal CBD oil, is allowed in the state of Virginia. So the grow operation is not there. You guys don't have the grow or the dispensary, but the CBD oil, whoever is selling the CBD oil, those guys are making a killing in your state. Those guys are making a killing in your state. He said, do I have a list of places that are hiring? I'm reading the professions off now, Issa. I would say the smoke shops. If you are interested in places that would be hiring for this profession, visit your local smoke shops. A lot of these hookah bazaars, not hooker, hooker, HOOKAH. Those are the places that are going to be your dispensaries, and those are going to be your places that are going to be dealing in medicinal based cannabis or marijuana. So, no, I don't have a list of places that are hiring, but I'm sure if you go to the smoke shops, the vape shops, and the hookah bazaars and lounges, that's going to be your spot. Okay. Big Brother in Life says, he's in the chat room, he says 2,800 every 2 weeks. I guess, is that what you're bringing home, Big Brother? 2,800 every 2 weeks? Is that take home or is that gross? Anyway, let me move on. Again, the dispensary store manager averages 75K a year. $75,000 a year is the average salary. Now, for position number 4, or for job occupation or job title number 4, is a cannabis extraction technician. Cannabis extraction technician. Okay. A cannabis extraction technician on the high end makes as much as $125,000 a year. A cannabis extraction technician makes as high as $125,000 a year. What is a cannabis extraction technician? Those are the people that convert the plant into oils or other forms to comply with state laws. So, in other words, you may not be able to sell the leaf itself, but you can sell the CBD oils. You can sell the various products that are used that are legal within your states. Where you can't use it as a leaf, you may be able to use it as an herb. You may be able to use it as a oil. You may be able to use it in whatever form your state allows cannabis to be used. The individual that takes the actual plant and transforms it from the plant form, or from its plant form or leafy form, into an oil, that guy or that person makes anywhere between 125,000 on the high end, 75,000 on the low end. So you have a potential 6-figure income as a cannabis extraction technician. You come in at a high 5, low 6 income figure. So moving on to number 3. Number 3. Number 3 is the grower. That's what we covered earlier. Anyone with good lighting, proper hydroponic equipment can grow some weed. It doesn't take a whole lot of equipment to do it, but what it will take is a lot of space. What it will take is the proper maintenance and care. Again, you will have to have insurance for this. They do actually, Colorado has a lot of insurance companies that sell marijuana insurance, and they insure it from the time it's in the ground all the way till it's harvested. So any potential growers might want to check into those insurance companies. I was actually appointed with one, and I forget the name of it. Last year I was appointed with one, but I let the license lapse because there was no demand for it here in Ohio. But anyway, good lighting and the proper hydroponic equipment, you can be a successful weed producer. But also, it takes a lot of skill because you have to be very adept at growing large quantities of marijuana. That's not something that anybody can do. Okay. So cultivators also have to know the various strands of marijuana. They have to know exactly how much lighting is needed for the larger yields. They have to know how to produce mass quantities of marijuana. They have to know how to protect it from bug infestation by pests, whatever insects feed on marijuana, and I'm sure there are many. But the protection and maintenance of marijuana is something that garners a high six-figure income. Now, on the high end, the growers, and I was shocked to figure this out, or I was shocked to find this out, the growers don't make as much as the extraction technicians. The growers make actually anywhere between 80,000 to 100,000 a year. That's for one farm. That's for one cannabis or for one marijuana field is 80 to $100,000 a year. Now, of course, if you had multiple fields, you know, you would multiply that income stream. So you can potentially become a millionaire as a grower, depending upon the number of fields and operations that you have. So that is number three. The grower license is the one that is the most costly to get. It is the most costly. It is the most time uh, intensive. It is a very laborious process. The applications are huge. They're like books. The applications for growers are like books. I mean, in the slightest uh, error or the slightest problem with the application, they will kick that application back, and you do not get a refund of any of those expenses that went into applying for that application. They do not refund your money. That application fee is gone. It is non-refundable. So if you're denied, you have to start the whole process over again. There is no appeals board. There's no one you can go and see to petition to have that application reviewed again. There's no one you can see that will have that application. So if you miss, it's a wrap. You're done. You are done. You have to submit an entirely new, you have to start the whole process over again and submit a new application. Okay. So moving on, number two. Number two is, I was shocked to find out this was an actual profession, but it is. It's called a bud tender. A bud tender. You know how you have bartenders? This is a bud tender. This is the pharmacist. He's the equivalent of the pharmacist. The bud tenders provide customer information about dosage. If you have people that use marijuana medicinally, they advise on the dosage of different types of cannabis, the wide variety of strands and strains. They inform the customers about the after effects of what they smoke, what they eat, or what they purchase from a dispensary. They'll usually caution the new users to take half of the recommended dose and then wait for 60 or 90 minutes to experience the full effect in order to determine what the full effects of that particular strand will be upon them. So again, I would call him the weed doctor or pharmacist. So that's what a bud tender is. Now, bud tenders actually receive training, excuse me. They receive rigorous training in the field that can go all the way up to 1 year. So you have to be, I imagine, licensed to be a bud tender. So it is a licensed and a regulated profession. Now, who would issue this license? It would be your state medical board. Most of these licenses, whether they be growers, whether they be dispensaries, whether they be extract technician, those licenses and occupations are going to be governed by the rules set by your state medical board. That's who is actually going to approve these licenses. You will have to submit them to your state medical board. Your applications will come from maybe your secretary of state or whatever your administrative organization is, but the actual people who will approve these applications will be your state medical boards. Okay. So the average salary for a bud tender starts at 100,000, goes to $125,000 a year, depending upon the dispensary where you're employed at. So if your dispensary is selling like mad, I mean, if you are working for a more successful or prosperous dispensary, your salary can actually be higher than what I'm saying here. It can be higher than the range of 100 to $125,000 a year. So that's not even a cap to be a bud tender. So we arrive at number one. Number one is a dispensary owner. A dispensary owner owns, directs, and sometimes even works at his own dispensary that supplies marijuana either medicinally or for recreational use. These guys buy from authorized growers, they buy in mass quantities, so of course they buy low and sell high. Now, even though the product is unconventional, the laws of business still the same. The laws of business do not change just because it's weed. Buy low, sell high. It's a business. Forget the stigma, forget the jokes, forget all the shit about Cheech and Chong and Snoop Dogg. This is a business. Forget all the shit you see in popular media, in popular culture. Forget all the shit you see in the movies. Forget all of that. This is a business. The rapper The Game said, I remember he said back 2 or 3 years ago, he said that there is no more money in the record industry. The rapper The Game came on the Breakfast Club and said that there is no more money in the record industry. No more money. He said that he didn't need to record another album. He actually owns a marijuana dispensary in California. Him and Snoop Dogg actually own a marijuana dispensary in the state of California. So these guys are independently wealthy and they're not even making records anymore. This is why you don't hear Snoop Dogg rapping. This is why he has a whole lot of time to spend on YouTube. Yes, you're right. You're right, Janelle. The Game has his own line of weed. The Game just recently got hit for a $7 million. I think it was either child support or domestic relations settlement recently. He got tapped for $7 million. So I know he got it. He hold it. The question was, I'm sorry, I skipped a question here. Somebody asked me, does your criminal background need to be clean? In most states, yes. In most states, generally, yes, your criminal record needs to be clean. Absolutely. A background check is an integral part of being able to participate in the marijuana industry. If your background if you have a felony drug conviction, if you have a felony drug conviction on your record, you will not be able to sell marijuana. It's a wrap for you. That was the first regulation or law that they put on the books. Prior felonies will prevent you from being able to participate in this industry. Let me go back. I'm not watching my chat, so y'all gonna have to be a little patient with me. I'm gonna go back and see if I missed any questions. Let's see. The bud tender is the people behind the counter. That's absolutely correct. Yes. The bud tender, that's the people behind, that's the pharmacists. All of these are behind the counter positions, with the exception of, I think, the cultivator, the marijuana extraction cultivator, oh, excuse me, the marijuana extraction technician, and the grower. All of these other professions take place behind the council, behind the counter. Damn, can't even talk this morning. Behind the counter. So yes, it is money in this. It is big money in this. Why do you think the corporations are pushing? The corporations are the ones, big pharmaceutical corporations and companies. They are the ones that are pushing for marijuana legalization. They're not listening to a bunch of these hippies in tie-dye shirts coming to the state legislature asking them to legalize marijuana. They've been asking for that shit since the 60s. So no, it's big pharmaceutical companies that are pushing for the legalization of marijuana because they know that it's big money in it. So I answered that question. Let's see. Yep, that X's out a lot of people of color. You're right about that. But you know how it is. Anything that can potentially make niggas a lot of money, they're gonna X niggas out the box right away. That's just how it is, and there are a bunch of different reasons for that, and I'm not gonna go into that this morning. But a lot of black people, that was exactly what my articles were about on the Negro Manosphere, the 7 different ways to make money from weed. I got an article on the Negro Manosphere called Where the Weed Man At? And I spoke about that very thing, that the very people that went to the penitentiary, went to the state penitentiary for selling it, are now going to be locked out of the market. That's unfortunate, but that's how it is. So being an owner, Reese says she wants to be an owner. Well, to be an owner, you have to, of course, apply to be an owner. And I went over that. The application is very extensive and it's very expensive. So good luck. If you're able to do it, I think some of us need to make some money off of it because a lot of us have gone to prison for selling it. So if you can get in on it, please do so. Please do so. Steph Cherie, good morning. Thank you for the information. As a nurse, I would like to have part in the medicinal industry. Again, the professions that I've went over, go back over. If you're just getting in to the podcast, catch the replay, go back over those professions, and come up with something you like to do. Because in some of these professions, you can simply work behind the counter. It doesn't require an investment, but it does give you a decent salary, an average salary, a living salary. Excuse me, not an average salary, a living wage salary. Because again, the average hourly salary for entry level positions in the marijuana industry, starts off at $15, according to Forbes magazine. So let's move on. Let me see where am I at here? A dispensary owner. Okay, a dispensary owner, because they deal with large quantities of marijuana or cannabis, of course, the profits can be huge. I've already stated that. Chain stores, meaning a list of stores or multiple stores, can bring in between 125,000 to $2.5 million a year, depending on the size of the operation. I'm going to say that again. A chain store operation or a franchise can bring in an income stream of between 125,000 to $2.5 million a year, depending upon your operation. Now, for that kind of money, I'd be in love with Mary Jane too. Shout out to the late Rick James. I'm dating myself here. I know some of y'all probably don't know who Rick James is, but Rick James made a song during the 80s, an ode to marijuana called Mary Jane. But for that kind of money, I'd be in love with Mary Jane too. So I guess marijuana's a hell of a drug, right? So what I'd like to do here is, if anybody has any questions, I'd like to take questions from the chat. If anybody has any questions as to how to get into this industry, as to how to participate in this industry and what you have to do, because this is something that I'm fairly competent in. Uh, let's see. Miss Nicole Michelle says, or asks, excuse me, how does this affect the street level hustle? Very simple. There's going to be, now, no doubt, I'm going to be honest with you. Marijuana on the streets is not going to entirely disappear. You still gonna find some niggas that's gonna find a way to sell some bootleg weed. Okay. But what will happen is, though they may not criminalize the possession of it, what they will criminalize will be the unauthorized sale of it. So, in other words, you can't get in trouble for having it, you can't get in trouble for smoking it, but you will get in trouble for, selling it if you do not have a license to. Just like basically now, it's going to be the same reason. What's going to happen is they will start making the unauthorized sale and distribution of it, they will start punishing that uh, more harshly. You'll get longer sentences. This is a way that they can do an end run around the so-called reform on the Rockefeller minimum sentencing laws, which were draconian. I mean, those things, I mean, they were really, really punitive. I mean, it was like an 18 to 1 sentencing disparity. And what that is, I'll go over that right quick. The Rockefeller sentencing laws was an 18 to 1 or 90 to 1 sentence disparity for people who used or sold powder cocaine versus those who used or sold crack cocaine. So what happened was is that the people that they caught with crack got heavier sentences than the people who they caught with cocaine. Why? Because the people who they caught with cocaine were white. The people that were selling crack was, yep, you guessed it, black. So how does this affect the street level hustle? What will happen is that with the dealers that are selling it, that don't have a license to sell it, now they will be able to give those guys longer prison sentences because of the unauthorized sale for it. They'll be able to roll back the reform that they made in the minimum sentencing laws to give those guys the maximum time. So how will that affect the street hustle? That is going to pretty much dry up the street hustle. You're going to see a lot of these guys that do it, they're going to make examples out of them. They're going to get long prison stretches, and it's really, really going to push the operation underground. But if they go ahead and legalize it, the pharmaceutical companies will also have large chunks of the market. So a lot of these street level dealers are going to find themselves locked out of the market unless they do business with the pharmaceutical companies. So the guys that will be able to sell it, they'll be making anywhere, I would say, anywhere between an average, I would say 30 to $35,000. It won't be a whole lot of money for the street level dealers. It won't be a whole lot of money for them. Of course, again, there will be a black market involved, but should they get caught, it'll be very, very risky. Should they get caught, but legalization will totally wash it out because you're also going to have to pay taxes on whatever you sell. It's legal now. So they'll be able to tax it and so forth. And a lot of those guys are going to be flushed out of the market. And the ones that are left in the market, if they catch them, their next prison stay will be extensive. So it will wash out the market at a street level. Now, does that mean some of them will that mean that some of them won't be able to be successful? Would that mean that some of them won't make huge amounts of money? I'm not saying that. You'll always have exceptions. You will always have exceptions. But for the most part, a lot of the street dealers are going to go by the wayside. So, it says, where can I take courses on cannibal extraction? Brother in life asked that question. I would say go to your smoke shops and ask them, or contact your local state medical board. They'll be able to let you know that. They'll be able to tell you where you can take these courses, what's required, how many hours you need in order to be certified. So you have to refer to your state authorities on cannabis, and they'll let you know what you need. So let's see what's here. Go here. The chat is, let's see what we got. Another hustle is weed delivery companies like Uber. Yes, the transport. That's a good point. That's a good point. The transport of marijuana. That's another place. So if you're talking about the transport of marijuana, you're going to be talking about insurance. You're going to need, freight insurance in order to be able to transport it. It's going to be relatively low cost. So yes, that's a viable business. That's a very prosperous business. There are many transportation companies out in Nevada that transport weed from the growers to the dispensaries. That, of course, you can make serious money doing that. And of course, if you make it, domestic, if you make it nationwide, the potential of distributing marijuana across the country is huge. So you're correct. I agree with you. She said, people too high to leave the house, so they get it delivered. Yep, exactly right. Exactly right. Let's see. Mr. Cole Michelle says they are taking over street economics. That's exactly what they're doing. That's exactly what they're doing. Because again, they're going to make it punitive. The people that are selling it on the streets, they're going to wash those cats out. And the ones that they catch moving it illegally, they're going to stroke them with long prison sentences. As a matter of fact, in the state of Ohio, there's already an unauthorized uh, distribution or an unauthorized sale of distribution for those that don't have a license. And the minimum here in the state of Ohio is 10 years. 10 years is a life sentence in some states. So there is a minimum here in the state of Ohio for the unauthorized sale. And by unauthorized, I mean those that are unlicensed to sell to dispensaries and growers. The minimum is 10 years. Going in the door, the minimum is 10 years. So, all right. Ace Music says late to the stream, but if it's hard to get in on the owner game, does it make sense to manufacture THC or CBD products or leverage the storefronts of people who do own? I covered that earlier, Ace. That is I think it's the cannabis extraction technician. Those are the guys that manufacture it and transfer it from plant form to oils. So yes, that is a huge industry to get in on. That is a huge industry to get in on. So I would recommend that or the bud tender position because those appear to be the most profitable ones, and those are the ones that you have to get licensed to sell. So I mean, you're licensed literally to sell and to tell people about the medicinal properties of marijuana. So yes, yes, the owner game. As a matter of fact, I'm gonna keep it all the way 100. We know most of us are not gonna be able to get in on the owner game. I'm just gonna keep it 100. Most of us are not gonna be able to get in on the dispensary game. It's just the war on drugs. The war on drugs has totally fucked a lot of black men up as far as being able to participate in the medicinal cannabis industry, because it's called cannabis now. We can't say marijuana. It has fucked up a lot of people when it comes to the medicinal distribution and grow industry or grow in of the industry. We're not going to be able to qualify there. Now, I said earlier, form cooperatives, groups of investors, to where you will have the capital necessary to be able to afford the application and to have the credentials to get that application approved. That's a laborious process. So if you do not have a co-op or you do not have the capital investment, I would suggest any of these professions that I've spoken of. Extraction technician, bud tender. Let me go back over them again. I'll go back over them again for some of the people that just joined the chat. Marijuana edible chef, dispensary store manager, cultivator or grower, okay, weed pharmacist, bud tender, or if you have the means, of course, dispensary owner. But I know most of us are not going to have that. Most of us are not going to be able to get into that level of the game. We're not going to be able to become and I'm not trying to be negative. I'm not trying to be pessimistic. I'm just keeping it 100. Because in a society where we constitute over 50% of the prison population, and most of those convictions are for drug-based offenses, you're not going to be able to get into the marijuana industry. The average salary in the black community, regardless of what most people will tell you, there's a lie going around. Most niggas are going around here talking about the black community is a majority middle class or middle income community. That's a damn lie. Most of the people in the black community are working class. The majority of the black community is working class. The average salary for middle income, according to the Bureau of Labor and Statistics, is $40,250. That is the average salary needed to be considered middle income. Okay. According to that same statistic, the average black household makes $200 under that amount. So they're $200 under the amount necessary to consider themselves middle class. So most of the community, most of the people in our community are actually working class, not middle class. So I say that to say that most of us are not going to be able to afford the huge expenditures that go into becoming a grow operation or a dispensary unless we form cooperatives, unless we form, posse up, you know, or squad up and form groups of investors, come together as co-ops, come together as partnerships, LLCs and corporations to be able to afford the capital expenditures so that we can get past the application stage. Most of us are not going to be able to afford that. So, because most of us are not going to be able to afford that, I would fully encourage you guys to get involved in these professions. Find out where they are. Find out where your state is. Find out where your state is in the marijuana legalization process. Find out where they are. Get with your state medical board. Find out what's necessary for you to become licensed in these different occupations so you can get in there and make some of that damn money in an industry that is projected to be $10 billion in the next 3 years. $10 billion in the next 3 years. Why should we not get some of that money? Why not? Jason Mabry says here, he says, I talked to a guy in Denver and he says you need about $1 million. That's probably right. That's probably right. And the longer it goes, the more successful that industry becomes, you're going to need more money than that. The cost to enter into that industry is going to become more expensive. So this is the ground floor at $1 million. This is the ground floor. Miss V said, once again, we have to figure out how to adjust and adapt. They know how much money They know how much money there is. I guess the intent was to pretty much lock us out of the profit, but still have the criminal element. Yep, exactly. That's exactly what's going to happen. That's exactly what is happening right now. Not tomorrow, not next week, right now. Miss Nicole Michelle asks, will the sale of cocaine increase since marijuana is being taken over street level with the sale of cocaine? That's a good question. I think that the sale of cocaine is dead. What we've seen here is the reemergence of heroin. So I don't think it's cocaine. If anything is going to enjoy a resurgence, it's going to be heroin. Because in many states across the country, what you're seeing is an opioid epidemic. Heroin is making a comeback as opposed to cocaine. So I think you won't see an increase in the sale of cocaine. You will see an increase in the sale of heroin, because heroin is, it's rather cheap. It's cheaper than cocaine, at least. You will see a uptick in heroin sales as opposed to cocaine. Doug asks, have I came across any information about CBD retail? Yes, CBD retail is also off the chart. Again, that goes back to what I said earlier. Cannabis extraction technician, the cannabis extraction technician. Those are the guys that process it from the leaf into the oils. That is a huge industry. The average salary there, unless I miss my guess, if my memory fails me, was about $75,000 a year. That's as a CBD oil salesman. Excuse me, not a salesman. I'm sorry. Extracting or making or producing the actual oil. So uh, CBD oils, that's going to be a big business. That retail is going to be a big business, because a lot of people are using CBD oil right now to treat cancer. I know people that are using CBD oils to treat prostate cancer. They're using it to treat. Some people are using it for breast cancer. Some people are using it for epileptic seizures. Some people are using it to treat diabetes. You know, so that is a huge industry. CBD retail will be or is huge. Quiet as it's kept, there are a lot of millionaires off of just selling CBD oil alone. Alone. I mean, just the oil, not the leaf, just the oil itself. So let's see. It said people are still selling pills too, though. People are gonna sell people. The drug game is not gonna stop. It's just gonna be less profitable. So you're gonna have people selling. You're gonna have people selling pills. You're gonna have people selling uh, speed. You're gonna have people selling different kinds of depressants, antidepressants, uppers, downers, the likes. Pills are going to always have some type of market because those are for the people that don't have the guts to try real drugs. So there'll always be pills. So that's not something to trip over. It's just that the drug game is going to become less profitable and more risky at a street level. Miss Luli says that she knows some people that are using it for anxiety. Yes, there are uh, there are endless there are endless uses for cannabis or marijuana. There are endless uses, and if you look at the the diseases or the illnesses for which you can use cannabis for, I mean, it's like hundreds. It's hundreds of illnesses that you could use it for. You can damn near use it just to wake up in the morning. You know. So the point here is that it's becoming more and more um, accessible. It's becoming more and more accessible, which means it's going to become more and more recreational, meaning you can get it for damn near anything. You can say that I'm going to get it for diabetes, or I'm going to get it for glaucoma, or I'm going to get it for, whatever the case may be, anxiety. But it's really becoming more and more of a recreational drug. So Janelle says, what does she say here? Janelle Santos says anxiety, backaches, sleep issues. There's a strain for that. You're right. There's a strain for everything. So as this led down, the last place that I suspect marijuana is going to be legal, with the only exception being Atlanta, because Atlanta is more cosmopolitan. It is the New York of the South. Atlanta is going to be the more progressive area when it comes to marijuana legislation. But the rest of the Bible Belt, you're going to have to damn near knock off all of the state legislature in order to get a bill like that passed. They're going to be the last ones to legalize it until the pharmaceutical companies are going to, at some point, change their mind through the super PACs, through the lobbying groups, But at this point, the last holdout is going to be the South. With the exception of Atlanta, the last holdout is going to be the South, the deep South, the Bible Belt. Even though they smoking it like hell down there, the South is going to be the last holdout. Now, the Northeast and the West Coast already has a liberal um, drug use and drug distribution policies. Again, the states that I called off first was Washington and Oregon and Nevada. It is fully legal in those states. Washington, Oregon, and Nevada. It is fully legal. And also California as well, Colorado, Alaska. It is fully legal. Michigan is fully legal. So, I mean, again, let's see. Let me look at this chart here I have. Maine is fully legal. Vermont is fully legal. Massachusetts is fully legal. Michigan is fully legal. Let's see, this is still Michigan. Let me look at another place here. Alaska, yes, Alaska. Now, New Mexico is mixed. Atlanta is mixed. So, in other words, the CBD oil is selling there, but it's not totally decriminalized. My home state of Alabama, it is fully illegal. Mississippi is fully illegal. Louisiana they allow it for medicinal purpose. Arkansas mixed. Tennessee is fully illegal. South Carolina is fully illegal. North Carolina is fully illegal. Florida is mixed when it comes to the access to uh, you know, cannabis or medicinal marijuana. Florida and Texas. She asked about Florida. Florida is mixed. Florida is mixed. Let's see. Let me about Texas. Texas is mixed. Florida and Texas, but Florida and Texas are border states. Florida and Texas, those are border states. So those may be an exception as well. Black Caesar is in the house and he asks Black Caesar, he says, so can I sell in Detroit? In Michigan, homes is fully legal. So you said, can you sell in Detroit? You goddamn right you can sell in Detroit. Because in Michigan, they have fully legalized marijuana in Michigan. You didn't know that? It is decriminalized. Medicinal, yes. So yes, you can sell as a dispensary, yes, but I wouldn't suggest trying to sell that shit on the streets. But yes, it is fully decriminalized. So in other words, even if they catch you with small amounts for recreational use, it's like a minor misdemeanor. It's no longer punishable by incarceration. So yes, you can sell, but I'm not telling you to go do anything illegal. So make sure you do it and you stay on the up and up. Miss V says they smoke a lot down here in Texas. Yeah, well, yeah, you're a border state. You're a border state, of course. Again, Miss Janelle Santos says she may be moving to Michigan. Again, in Michigan, it is fully decriminalized. It is legal for medicinal purpose. It is legal. The CBD oil is legal. So I would advise everyone in here that is in Michigan, look into it. Look into dispensaries if you have the means to do it. Look into becoming a bud tender. Look into becoming a chef. Look into becoming an extraction technician. Look into these different professions because that is a huge industry. Let's see. Black Caesar says, Tony, I'm looking forward to purchasing 2 properties here. Thanks. No problem, Holmes. No problem, brother. Let's see what we got here. Janelle Santos, I'll be a bud tender. I'll start researching it. Please do. Y'all get into this. Get into this. We've made we are the only group of people. Do y'all realize we made smoking marijuana a pop cultural phenomenon? Think about all the records and all the things that, the records that we've made. The Chronic. Dr. Dre damn near institutionalized weed smoking in the black community. That was a seminal classic. The Chronic is a classic album. We have mainstreamed this part of our culture. And now that we've mainstreamed this part of our culture, now there are billion-dollar pharmaceutical companies that stand to rake in billions, not millions, billions off of a culture that we created that at one time was illegal, that was criminalized, a culture that we created that was criminalized is about to be decriminalized. And they're about to make tens of billions of dollars off of it. I think we should be getting some of that money. I think we should be getting some of that money because that industry can completely revitalize the economy of the black community. That industry has the power to revitalize the black community. That's a whole lot of bags, ain't it, Nicole? A $10 billion industry is a whole lot of bags. It's going to make the weed man popular overnight. Nobody's going to get as much ass as the weed man now. Well, the weed man has been getting a lot of ass, so that's no news. But uh, what I'm saying here is that industry, it's a crying shame that during the 70s we got locked up for that. And Nixon's war on drugs. Nixon's war on drugs, which they admittedly said, or which they admittedly stated that it was a war against black people. That's a matter of record now. That's not conspiracy theory. That's not pro-black rambling. It's not pro-black rhetoric. They literally said that. They literally said that the war on drugs was a war on black people. And now they're getting ready to legalize and make tens of billions of dollars off of one of the most popular drugs in the black community, and we can't even participate in it. I think that's obscene. I think that's obscene. So I think that some of us, Roland Martin, Neek Speaks is here. Good morning, Miss Neek. She says that what I just invested into my first marijuana stocks Friday. Well, Roland Martin is actually promoting investment into cannabis based stock ventures. So if you tune into his channel, shout out to Roland Martin. I still say you a Democratic Party shill. I still say you are a water barrier of the Democratic Party, but I can't criticize you on the issue of marijuana stocks. So yes, invest in marijuana stocks. Invest in uh, those plants. Invest in grow operations. You may not can maintain a grow operation, but you can sure as hell invest in one. So let's see. Nicole Michelle says culture vultures attack once again, yet we praise these people and want to mate with them and look down on our own. Yep. Don't get me started on that shit. That's fool's gold. But anyway, let's see. What else do we have here? Said, I want weed reparations. Miss Santos says, I want weed reparations. It's damn sure there for you. In a $10 billion industry, it's there for you. I wondered about stocks I want to invest. Again, Roland Martin does an excellent promotion campaign for investing in marijuana stocks. So you can tune in to his channel and he speaks a lot about that. Okay. All right. So if there are no other questions, I'm getting ready to sign off for this morning. I want to thank you guys for coming in and hanging out with me for this little hour and 7 minute chat. I hope you got something out of this live today. I hope you got some information you can use. Please, by all means, invest, or excuse me, research. I'm sorry, research and investigate marijuana or cannabis based occupations, job occupations, cannabis based job opportunities, cannabis based investment opportunities, and start looking for those, research, investigate them, start finding a way for us to make some money out here in these streets, because it is obscene, it is disgusting, it is profane, it is absurd, and a lot of other shit that I can't think about right now as to why we are not participating in this industry. We need parts, as the niggas say in the streets. We need parts. We need parts of the cannabis industry. We need to be in on this. You know, there was a song that came out in, I think it was the 90s. I got five on it. We need to get five on it. We need a part of this industry. We need a part of a potentially $10 billion industry. We need parts of that. So until next time, this is your boy Tony Maceo, trick scholar and philosopher. As always, I keep that 75 on deck. I want to thank you for joining me this morning. Like and subscribe. Like this video, subscribe to my channel, Power and Strategy. Also, you can go on over to Genosha TV. I will be having another guest there pretty soon. I'm trying to get Sifu Novel Bell. I'm trying to see if he'll give me an interview, as well as some other people that I'm trying to get on that channel. I'm really trying to build that channel up. Anyway, Power and Strategy on YouTube, Genosha TV on YouTube. Should you be so inclined, my Patreon is Power of Strategies. Power of Strategies at Patreon. On PayPal, it is Way of Strategy 44. Should you choose to support on PayPal, Way of Strategy 44 at gmail.com on PayPal, Power of Strategies on Patreon. Till next time. Wait a minute. Black Caesar says, when I get on, I'm going to hit you with a brick. Okay. All right. I'll holler at you, player. Until next time, y'all stay up, be safe, and till next time, I got 75 and I will holler. Love y'all. Peace.